Hey there, Adrienne Elise here. Welcome to the Gaia update for the total solar eclipse that's happening at 12:12 Eastern Time in the US on December 26th, 2019. This is epically huge. This eclipse is only visible in small parts of India and Cambodia, but we're all going to be feeling it. So let's talk it through. Leading up to this eclipse, just a few days before the eclipse, we have the solstice. And so just before the solstice every year, the sun crosses over that galactic center point at the end of Sagittarius. So that happens every year, but this year it's really epic because we just had that Jupiter-Venus activation as together they went over the galactic center last month. So this is like ripples or waves of this energy connecting us to this center of the galaxy, this huge energy pulling everything to it. And it's a point of destiny. It's this kind of flash of light around a bigger picture of who we are and what we're doing here. So as the sun moves over that point just before the solstice, we're feeling another wave of that energy. Just after that, on the actual solstice, that's when the sun moves into Capricorn. So here we have a bloom of the Capricorn energy. We'll have Mercury in Capricorn, the sun and the moon in Capricorn as well. Of course, the big players, Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn, that are coming into that epic conjunction. We're not quite sure what this means for us, but we're exploring the meaning, but in January of 2020. So we are being prepared for this 2020 astrology right now, and it has officially begun. Remembering that full moon in Gemini also happening at 12:12 a.m. on December 12th. So 12 in numerology, you would add the 1 and the 2, and that would be 3. Now 3 has an energy of creativity. It's about creating more than the parts, right? Like two people bringing their energy together and creating something bigger than both of them. Really cool energy, and that is also the numerology of 2019. When you add up 22019, you'll get back to 3. So now we're moving into the 2020 energy, which is 2 and 2 makes 4. So we're in this interesting place of going from 3, creative energy, creating a product, creating something new, creating something bigger, and then into 4. Now 4 has an energy of 4 walls and building and structure and security and stability. So the 2020 astrology feels really intense, but it's really about finding stability in these energetic shifts that are inevitable in this time that we live. In this total solar eclipse, it happens at 4 degrees Capricorn. So it's very potent. And now the other thing is that right there at 4 degrees Capricorn is also Jupiter. So Jupiter having that epic transition over the galactic center only happens every 12 years. Very rare to happen with Venus. And now Jupiter right next to the sun and the moon for this total solar eclipse. Now Jupiter brings an energy of an expansion, an energy of that bigger picture, the wider horizon. And going back to that galactic center activation, we're all getting this energy of like, whoa, there's way, way, way more to this picture, to who we are, to what's going on in the world, to our history than we could even conceive of, And so it's an exploration and a process that we're in. But this total solar eclipse is this transition point to taking the creative energy and now manifesting with it, with that 4 walls. It's like we're building a new paradigm brick by brick. And so the other thing that's happening leading up to this total solar eclipse is that Mercury is in a square with Neptune. Now, Mercury had that incredibly powerful retrograde in Scorpio, now in Sagittarius squaring up with Neptune. It had those 3 trines with Neptune in that retrograde, and now a square. Now, squares are about adjustment. It's about like the end of the road. You can't keep going the way you're going. You've got to, change directions. Now, these are mutable signs. Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo. Those are mutable signs. It's in the sign of Sagittarius squaring up with Neptune. So it's like kind of reflecting all of the mutable signs. And mutable signs are about adjustments that need to be made. They happen during the change of seasons. So what is this adjustment that needs to be made? It's about our perception, because Mercury is like our everyday, our mind, our everyday way of seeing things, understanding things. And then in square to Neptune, it's that bigger picture, the spiritual energies, the delusions of the Piscean age around spiritual energies. And, ultimately, it feels like it's clearing a pathway to a direct connection to source energy, to God, creator, whatever word works for you. This is kind of like, what do you need to do to remember and to know this bigger part of you, that you're not just in a body bag. You're not just a physical being having this experience, eating, pooping till you die. It's like you're so much bigger than that. And so that Mercury square Neptune is very potent leading up to this total solar eclipse. The other thing that happens right on the eclipse is that right on the solstice, is that Venus moves into the sign of Aquarius. So Venus is leading the way, into this Aquarian energy, because Aquarius is the sign after Capricorn. So you can kind of see that this is a lot about the Aquarian age and trying to bring a new paradigm, trying to land home new possibilities on this planet. And so what happens when Venus moves into Aquarius is it comes immediately into a square with Uranus in Taurus, the ruler of Aquarius. Right? So Uranus and Taurus is talking about new energies, these higher frequency vibrations, electrical energies, magnetic energies, deeply infusing into our earth, into our physical reality, right? And so with Venus in square, in Aquarius, it's saying, okay, you guys, I'm going to sample out the waters, right? And, but in square, of course, it has that tension aspect of like, you're at the end of the road, you got to turn direction. And in this case, the direction is around our self-worth, kind of really bringing to the light, well, what if there a new paradigm? What if there's a new path for you? What if it is an opportunity to be reborn into your bigger self and move into your destiny and like get to work on what you really came here to do? You've been waiting for lifetimes. But if you don't feel like you deserve it, it's never going to land, right? So that's a powerful message for us. It's like adjusting our self-worth, and so we've been living in a very smallness and been told again and again, we're very small. We're just physical, just focus on the material, just make more money, you'll be fine. And we're so much more than that, especially these souls that are drawn to this work. And Venus is saying, do you feel like you deserve? And it's kind of weird because these energies are more true to who we are than this fake life we've been living. And yet, so how does it make sense even that we could deserve it or not deserve it? No, it doesn't make any sense at all. And so this is coming up. Venus has gotten a huge empowerment, but also facing a lot of these deep insecurities and vulnerabilities with that crazy conjunction with Saturn and Pluto earlier this month. And so now Venus is saying, reevaluating. And what do I need to adjust here? How can I feel better about who I am to allow myself to receive this new vibration, to allow myself to lighten the load, move into these vibrations. At first, it's destructive and intense because you have to go through the ego death. You have to your whole world and what you thought might have to fall apart, and it can be very painful. But then you get to move into the lighter frequencies, right? So do you deserve that? Or do you need to stay in the trauma of it? And this is this reevaluating our relationship to the feminine and our relationship within and our relationship to, of course, that represents also our self-worth. So the universe is just lining up in epic ways, giving us all kinds of information about what can help us move into these new energies. And part of that deserving thing, what's coming up around it, is loyalty contracts. So a lot of souls I've been working with, and across the board, these types of souls drawn to this work have been finding themselves with one foot in the new paradigm, one foot in the old paradigm for a very long time. And what's coming up is loyalty contracts, maybe to your ancestry, to groups of souls, where you feel like perhaps you should stay behind for other people. And that's an option, right? But it's getting more and more painful to stay in the lower energies when you're already moved. Part of you is already moved into the higher energies, And so we're examining these loyalty contracts, because really the best way to bring souls with you, or anybody else with you, or help shift the whole world, is to go ahead and allow yourself to make this shift and demonstrate what's possible, right? And so this is a lot of the shifting that is on the table with that Venus square Uranus. So then, we talked about how the sun and the moon are right next to Jupiter. Jupiter has an expansion of energy in Capricorn. The sun, moon, and Jupiter in Capricorn is like, hey, yeah. So the sun and the moon have to do with who we think we are and our emotional self and our identity. They're quick moving planets. Moon very quickly, and the sun kind of 1 degree a day or so, and so these are personal planets, and it's kind of like how we see ourselves in the world. And so there's a big energy of shifting there. And Jupiter is like a crystal. It expands whatever it comes into contact with. And so it's like expanding our opportunities for manifesting, bringing into real, actual experience our dreams, our visions, building this new world, bringing it into form. We've been dreaming about it, and then we've been dashed in our dreams again and again. And Jupiter's like, okay, it's time to build. And maybe first, in order to build a new world and a new paradigm, we have to rebuild our sense of self, more congruent and with the awareness of the bigger truth of who we are, represented by that galactic center. The galactic center is in the sign of Sagittarius, and Jupiter rules Sagittarius. So Jupiter kind of brings that energy, especially after just making that epic transition over that place with Venus. So it's expanding us into a new possibility of who we are. And that's very powerful after Jupiter having such an intense leading up to this. We'll feel almost all the way, pretty much all the way to solstice. We feel that Jupiter square Chiron, pretty much the main energy of December 2019. And that was about adjusting our identity from victimhood, perhaps, to empowerment. And so that energy is really important when we're looking at this total solar eclipse. It's like, hey, it's like a flash of light going off, this total solar eclipse. You are not who you think you are. You are not who you have been told. Sorry for the lies, but it's time to wake up. And the waking up that we're doing is to this bigger, wider truth of who we really are. So it's powerful, man. And it feels like this eclipse has like a rebirth energy, right? And I'm sure you've been feeling it. Labor pains, right? And it's and one of the things that started happening in around 2012, and like in the Mayan calendar leading up to 2012, and it's almost like there was all these astrological events, and they were spaced apart. And then as we got closer to 2012, it was like these astrological events are closer and closer together. It's like changing our whole relationship to time, and that's a lot of the energy of eclipses. And this one in particular is like really changing our relationship to time. And so I would expect some out of time, otherworldly energy coming in. Even though this is in Capricorn, it's like Saturn rules Capricorn, and Saturn is often called Father Time. It's like a timekeeper. It's like the last planet we can really see with our eyes. And so it represents like a bridge between the manifested world and the wider transpersonal truths of the transpersonal planets, like a bridge between worlds. And so we're maybe we're adjusting the goalposts here. It does feel like it's an opportunity for divine timelines to land, to get on our optimal timeline. That's probably will come through the Eclipse Soul Group session if you're interested in joining that. But it's a huge shift, and it feels like all of these birthing pains we've been going through, it's now time to, if you're ready, birth that new identity that has to do with leaving behind the victimhood stories, coming into, you don't know who you are, right? See, this is the weird thing that I help people with in my individual sessions. It's like, you might not maybe you were traumatized in a past life or numerous past lives when you were expressing the truth of who you are, in like as a healer, as a light worker, and then you as a leader, that's coming up a lot. And then you're like, then something happened. And it's like, well, I'm never going to do that again, right? And so who you really are, these big pieces of you, you wouldn't even recognize, right? So we're like meeting ourselves for the first time. And that is exactly the energy of this total solar eclipse, bringing into form, incarnating who we really are in our wider, bigger truth. With Jupiter right next to the sun and the moon, we cannot escape that reality. So we are rebirthing ourselves. And this is a huge theme in these types of souls, is that because of these past life traumas and because of the time that you incarnated on this planet in this past life, or in this lifetime, the energies couldn't really support you in that wider, bigger truth. So it's almost like you've been on, partially incarnated, kind of operating on less cylinders, and now it's time to get your whole engine running and land here. Except we've also been programmed with a whole bunch of fear about who we are. It's a big reason why we haven't fully incarnated. But now is the time, because you can't have that programming of fear, which this comes up as you get closer to spiritual awakening. You move forward, and you might be a person that doesn't really have anxiety and fears, and then all of a sudden you're just struck with them. This is old things you've experienced from past lives reliving in your body. Super intense for people, especially if you're not prone to fear and anxiety in general. And then they just wash over you and they're overpowering because you don't know where it's coming from, right? But you can't have fear programming if you don't have authority contracts, which means like where you've given your power over in past lives. And that's a big energy with this Capricorn energy. Capricorn rules the authority structures and structures in general of our physical world. And so those are up for review. Where have you given your power away? Where did you decide that some force outside of you gets to say whether or not you can feel safe as who you are, fully incarnated on the planet, except for most of these souls do. And this is what we're overcoming. And so it doesn't make sense because we don't have access to these memories, right? But you can relate to this story. It's been going on for the last couple of years. People, just the veil being thin between past lives. And it's like all of a sudden you're triggered, but your response to the trigger is way beyond what matches what's happening in your physical reality. It's because we're just sorting through all of these old records, all this stuff that doesn't fit us anymore, so we can drop those stories and come into this bigger, wider truth of who we are. Exactly the energy of this total solar eclipse, and not just know who we are, but embody it. 4 is embodiment. It's being here. It's fully incarnating. And so this is a rebirth, perhaps. And also maybe that's why we've been doing so much trauma healing, because most of us had trauma during our birth. It's very traumatic. Be a physical body and come through the birth canal or get ripped out or however happened, and the way that we're treated right after birth without awareness of what the soul needs. And, we all have birth trauma, and maybe that's why all these deep hidden trauma energies are coming up, is because we're being reborn and we've got to heal those energies. And in order to find them, in order to heal them, we have to find them. So it's so huge, and we're not quite sure what it all means, but we're exploring it, right? And so the other thing that's happening for this total solar eclipse is that Mars will be in a sextile with Pluto. Okay, now Saturn and Pluto are getting closer and closer together. So on the 20th of December, Saturn moves on this. It's really wild how this all lines up, because Saturn and Pluto move on the same day, degrees. So on the 20th of December, Saturn moves to 20 degrees on the 20th of December. It's like, okay, I think it's time to pay attention to what's going on this other level, because shit is lining up, and it's intense, it's freaky, it's disconcerting, it's exciting, it's all of it. But on the 20th, Saturn goes to 20 degrees Capricorn, Pluto goes to 22, where the conjunction happens. And then on the 29th of December, after this, just a few days after this total solar eclipse, Saturn moves to 21 degrees. And so that's when they'll be 1 degree apart. And it's like the portal of that energy of the Saturn Pluto conjunction is happening. And you should go back and maybe listen to some of the 2020 videos I've done to kind of learn more about that energy. There's a video just on January 2020 that can be helpful. And so, but what we're feeling for this total solar eclipse is that squeeze. And Venus just crossed over that. Venus is kind of like, hey, let's make peace, you guys. Let's figure out a way to be harmonious with this, you know. And then of course she's like, they're like, who do you think you are, little girl? You know, it's like that little girl inside of all of us is, you know, our most powerful energy, really, you know. And so that Venus-Pluto conjunction that just happened in around the middle of December is an activation of our feminine power, if we want to take it. But so much of what we've been working on is balancing the male and female within our own psyche, and that's on the planet as well. And so this empowerment of our inner feminine is trying to happen. And so Mars and sextile to Pluto is a very harmonious energy. It's like, hey, we can do this. It's creative solutions. Let's cross over. Let's figure it out. We can do this. And Mars, of course, wants to just have the feeling of movement, of action. And that's been so elusive, you know, with that Mercury retrograde. And so Mars still in Scorpio. So we're moving emotions. We're moving subconscious energies, and in sextile to Pluto, the ruler of Scorpio. But Mars rules our ego also, and Pluto our higher ego or spiritual ego, which there's different octaves to both of these. And so there's a lot of energy here of like what we've been going through, like the ego death, right? Like if you're gonna birth your brand new big soul, then you're going to have to break the old container because it can't hold you, right? So that's the ego death energy. But Mars and sextile to Pluto is saying, yeah, this is going to happen as part of it, right? But it's cool. We got this. We can do it. And definitely an energy, the Capricorn energy is the mountain goat, right? And it's like, yeah, that's a huge mountain to climb, you know, but the mountain goat doesn't think like that. The mountain goat just puts one foot in front of the other. And, you know, as you get higher up the mountain, the less you can see of where you're going. Maybe that's where we're at right now. Because the trying to know where we're going and what 2020 is about exactly for you is elusive right now. So don't even go there. Don't waste your mental energy on trying to figure this out. It's not making sense. So the other thing that happens just after this total solar eclipse is that Mercury moves into Capricorn and then comes into that square with Chiron. And so that's kind of like when Mercury moves into Capricorn, they're just right around the time of this total solar eclipse, just like the day after. Or a few days after, it's kind of like, yeah, game on, right? Because then Mercury, the sun, the moon, Saturn, Pluto, everybody's hanging out, you know, around this time. And so Mercury in square to Chiron is again bringing up the Chiron issues in Aries, just like Jupiter did. And Mercury is our everyday reality. Jupiter's a bigger picture. Right? So we've been cleansing and working on these deep psychic healing of these old wounds. Mercury is like, okay, let's figure this out. Let's make sense of it. So there may be some clarity that can come, like kind of, oh, okay, yeah, no, I could feel all this happening, but it didn't really make sense in my orientation of who I am, what I'm doing, and now that can happen. So that's pretty powerful at the end of the year. That's exact on the 30th, and it's kind of a interesting energy right at that end of the year, new year energy. So our rebirth has a lot to do with our everyday, a big change in thinking in our everyday. And maybe that has to do with this victimhood and kind of where we've rolled over, where it's easier to just let other people be in charge. It's easier to just not go up against these forces and just play dead. You know, that's over. That's not going to work in 2020, you know? And that's fine if you want to choose it, but you're missing a really great opportunity to move into this new paradigm energy. And then, you know, on that same day that's exact, on the 30th, is also when the sun comes up with the south node in Capricorn. And that's at 8 degrees. And that's the number of transformation, which is cool because we just have a few months left of this north node in Cancer, south node in Capricorn. So we're getting the lessons here. And the south node is kind of what's holding us back, what's dragging on us from behind. And the south node in Capricorn is bringing up those authority issues and where we've given our power away. And where, and maybe there's a relationship here between that authority energy where we've given our power away and our ability to manifest. Makes a lot of sense. Because as I help people resolve their authority contracts, they tend to get on their path and feel like, you know, and that's the thing. It's like we're trying to make sense. We don't know who we are. We can't even recognize it, but we know there's a bigger, wider truth. We're allowing ourselves to be punished for who we are, and yet we're not receiving who we are. And so how can you really bring that into the world, you know, and especially feeling like it's not quite yours to have, like you don't have permission to be in your own power, right? And so resolving those issues, which will also be a big part, an opportunity probably in the eclipse soul group session, to look at those authority contracts and kind of like, oh, wait, no, it's kind of a silly idea that there's a force outside of myself that's more powerful than me gets to say who I am or who I get to be, or whether I can handle my own power. That doesn't really make sense. Of course, when you're traumatized, then of course it makes sense, right? So it kind of lives in our attachment to the trauma stories. And that's everything we've been working on for the past couple of months with that Mercury retrograde and all of this Chiron transits. And so that sun coming up on the south node is saying the sun is who we think we are. And it's kind of like, who do you think you are, right? Who do you think you are? Are you here to be disempowered, held down in chains, like a fraction of who you really are? Or are you here to be who you are? So just incredibly powerful energy as we move into that 2020 astrology with the 29th, Saturn moving to 21 degrees, and then Mercury square Chiron and the sun south node. It's kind of like ding, 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 ringing the bell. And that picture of the ripples of like these powerful astrological events, we're having one after another, and it's like rippling out this energy, particularly those coming to mind, the sun crossing over the Galactic Center, reigniting that activation. That's just before the solstice. And then at the exact time of this total solar eclipse, Mercury being, Mercury the messenger, right? So Mercury had to go in this deep dive Scorpio. He got behind, right? Because we had some cleaning up to do. Jupiter said, yeah, deep psychic healing with square to Chiron. Now Mercury is caught back up to the Galactic Center for this total solar eclipse. Jupiter there with the sun and the moon, and Mercury on the Galactic Center makes this a lot about the bigger truth of who we are and reorienting to that, receiving that, being reborn, having this like landing home. The key to our whole future and what we really came here to do has to do with this bigger, wider truth of who we are that we don't even know, but we sense it. But we've been so kept from it. So brainwashed and gaslit to think it's not who we are, right? And yet so many of these souls walking around with this emptiness, knowing that there's something missing or something bigger. I know it's there. I know something I need to do maybe, but what in the heck is it, right? So the little baby that's being born and incarnating the brand new, fresh, bigger part of you doesn't know what's going on at the time of birth. So that's kind of where we are. Don't worry about what this actually means in the manifestation. It's the manifestation of the bigger, wider truth of you, which you need to learn, get to meet, and learn about and readjust to this truth. And so we're in this big time of birthing, laboring, adjusting, healing, and we'll see if it makes more sense soon, but don't worry about it if it doesn't, because that bigger part of you does know what's going on. And so eventually you'll be getting the messages. So maybe that's what 2020 is like that unfolding of our being able to, in our conceptual daily reality, daily life, be connected, really connected to that bigger, wider truth. So I hope you can join me if you're interested. I'm doing a soul group session. This is a group intuitive session. And what we do is we look at shared past life pictures and invite clearings and healings and contractual healings, like those authority contracts. And we look at what comes up in the group of whoever comes on the call. And it's also a great opportunity to connect energetically with your true soul group. So many things are blocking, and that's become a big focus of my work. So many belief systems and contracts block our connection to the true soul group. And so this is a great opportunity to make those connections on the astral plane, invite them into your everyday life, and get to work on these great projects that we came here to do together. So I'm doing a soul group session on the solstice as well as on the total solar eclipse. It's a very busy time. And I know it's a lot. And these are $20 sessions because we go into deep, more in-depth work. And so if you join, I'd love to have a group that carries over between these events. And if you join the solstice soul group session, I'll send you a coupon for half off for the eclipse session. And so maybe it can work out for a group of people to be in both, kind of like bookends, holding this space, holding this portal, holding this this sacred space on the astral plane for us to do this work. And so thank you so much for being a part of it. And I hope you'll consider joining. Now, the solstice soul group session and the eclipse soul group session. So the solstice soul group session is on the 21st. Leading up just a couple of hours before the exact time of the solstice at 8 p.m. Mountain Time and 7 p.m. on the West Coast and 10 p.m. on the East Coast. Now, if you are, so I went ahead and set the eclipse soul group session at the exact same time of day, but that's going to happen Christmas night on the 25th at 8 p.m. Mountain Time, 7 p.m. Now, this in Europe, I'm so sorry about this, but it ends up being in the middle of the night. But you can join this session whenever your intention to join brings you into the group, whether you're physically present at the time we do it or not. So those messages, clearings, healings will be there for you encoded in the recording. But because I wanted to capture the essence of these times, so the time of the eclipse soul group session is just as the eclipse is starting and a couple hours before the exact eclipse. So we can just really get into that energy. And so the information to sign up for these is below. And like I said, if you go ahead and sign up for the solstice one, I'll send you a coupon for half off of the eclipse one, and maybe we can get a good group together in both of these sessions. And it's just kind of like so much going on, but really important to take advantage of these times. So I hope to see you on one of those sessions or on the next update. I hope you're following the 21 days of presence. We have a great energy going there, and I look forward to seeing you soon. And just hang in there through these intensities, knowing that you are rebirthing a bigger you here on the planet, and we can't wait to meet you. So I look forward to seeing you soon. Until then, I'm Adrienne Elise. Namaste.